This is Emil, and I'm bothered, I'm upset, and we need to do something. These executive orders is outrageous. We need to go ahead and figure out where the shredder is at. So we ain't got the Ninja Turtles. We ain't got the FBI. We don't have the CIA. We don't have none of those 3 or 4 letters. All we have is a bird watcher and a person who wants change to happen. If you like change, help for democracy, come join. Keep watch.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You're here with Emil, and we are going over the executive orders that were signed on the first day. There were 26 of them. Out of the 26, we're going to figure out which one that we like, and we're going to go over whichever one we like to go over, and then that's the one we're going to deep dive. I already have one case that's already up. I believe it's dealing with the EPA. But for right now, we're going to watch a couple videos. The first video, in fact, we're going to watch 2 videos: the first day and the today, talking about the executive orders that he's already signed.
My parents are visiting the USA. Which plan should I purchase?
Sell her any plan, tell her it's cheap.
First item that President Trump is signing is the rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others. Thank you, sir. Thank you. The second item, President Trump, is a regulatory freeze, as you announced in your speech, preventing bureaucrats from issuing any more regulations until we have full control of this, the government and this administration. Thank you, sir.
Sir, can I have a pen?
The next item, sir, is a freeze on all federal hiring, excepting the military and a number of other excluded categories, again, until full control of the government is achieved and we understand the objectives of government going forward.
Could you imagine Biden doing this? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Sir, the next item, as you announced in your speech, is a requirement that federal workers return to full-time in-person work immediately.
Yeah, as you see, he's like signing them just willy-nilly. So let's go ahead and jump into the document talking about the past executive orders that were signed by previous presidents. And then we're going to get into what a few of those executive orders actually mean. So if you like, then there's a link tree that's attached to this document. So if you those in the link tree are some of the sponsors that I kind of deal with for the most part. I'm invested in AI chat conversation, which means that if you were to have a business, you be able to be on vacation and have your AI bots handle certain activities without you actually having to be on the phone, which is a very big nuisance for many people when you are trying to operate a business and run a family at the same time, which family is more important than business. But without the business, you might not have a family. So with that being said, that's the Bomb Digital Media. Yeah, that's the Bomb Digital Media. So let's go ahead and talk about this document. In this document, we've outlined a bell curve and observations dealing with the presidential executive order signed by Donald Trump and others. And then page 4 through 9 is the actual all of the executive orders signed on day one, which accounted to 26. Out of those 26, whichever one that you feel that we need to go over, we'll go over after going over the cases already been outlined. So when we look at the bell curve of the executive orders per president, what was done was all of the presidential information, all the way from George Washington to present, was put into this data. What I noticed was a lot of them at the earlier days did not really sign a lot of executive orders. It's only till about like the 14th, the 13th, the 15th president when we started signing a lot of orders at one time. As you can see with the bell curve, the red represents, that's a little, let's get a little close. All right. So yeah, so the bell curve of executive orders. So this is a number of executive orders from March, max 3,725. So if you want to look at the bell curve, you can. It just kind of lets us know like how far. I guess like the only one that really was big was FDR. Which FDR had like over 3,000. He's the reason why the bell curve is so, I guess, what is that? He's the outlier, but it's the reason why it's so curved that way. It's just because of him. If it was not because of him, then it will be a lot less use of executive orders. This can be seen with again, he signed 3,725. One reason why he signed that many was because he had 4 different terms. So it kind of makes sense. When you talk about William Henry Harrison, he had 0. Do you know why he only had 0? Well, William Harris was a person who actually died shortly after getting the position of president. And so that's the reason why he only had 0. So this kind of sucks to be the president and die a month or 2 after being in. The average was 399 executive orders that were signed by presidents. The median was 214. The standard deviation, and again, this is due to the outlier of FDR. That's the reason why there's a high variability, is because of FDR. But FDR came behind Hoover. Hoover is similar to Trump, where he was siding with a lot of the business tycoons and treating America like monopoly, and basically he was signing orders and really wasn't thinking about the little guy or the workers. But let's go ahead and move on. So a few observations. Again, most executive orders issued was Franklin D. Roosevelt, is clear outlier with 3,725 executive orders. The least was William Henry, due to his death. He only was there for like 2 months. The average range, most presidents fall between 100 and 400 executive orders. The bell curve shape positively skewed due to a extreme outlier like FDR and Theodore Roosevelt. So Theodore Roosevelt was his brother who did a lot of them too. I believe. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if they're brothers or not. I need to check and see if that they could be cousins for all I know. I really didn't I don't know too much about Theodore, but I do know about him. So statistical numbers of how many executive orders every president has enacted in office. If you like, you can go to this link right here. It has the orders, and this link right here is the American Presidency Project, and it outlines essentially all of the presidential executive orders, all the way from George Washington to Donald Trump. And then it outlines if the person was Democrat, Republican. It outlines the term as well and the numbers of years in office. I felt like this was good to actually explore. If you notice, looking at this information, they really started numbering them at Theodore Roosevelt. That's when they started numbering them. And I'm assuming these right here are the pages. So, I mean, I could be wrong. Number range, the page number or the executive order, one of the two. Of course, I've been wrong about a few things, but I've been right about a few things too. So, yeah, moving on. So the note I was making earlier was the fact that the presidents before did not sign a slew of executive orders. As you can see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It took 7 before we even got double digits. So it was 7 individuals that were president before we got to double digits. And then at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And then Ulysses was the first one to go over 100. And then that was about like 18th or 19. So it took about 18 or 19 presidents to get over 100 executive orders. And then it took about 7 presidents to get over 10. So essentially it's like exponential in theory, but it does not continue. So if you notice that Rutherford Hayes did not continue that practice. For whatever reason, I feel like we might need to look into Ulysses Grant and see what he was doing. I believe that Ulysses Grant, to my understanding, was expanding to the West at that time, and that might be the reason why he had a lot of executive orders, that he might have been quote unquote in war with the Native Americans. So that might have been the reason why he had so many executive orders, and Rutherford B. Hayes probably followed suit, trying to continue his mandate. So, but yeah, if you notice at that point, that's when people started signing over 100 after Ulysses Grant. They didn't sign as many as Ulysses Grant. So at Theodore Roosevelt, he was the one who first initially broke the seal, and he broke the idea that we should not use the executive orders like let's get it done. He was the first one, and I say that because he has over 1,000, and he had 2 terms. So he had 2 terms. He had over 1,000, and in a sense, that's like as you see right here, the kind of outlines. I was about to do the math. I don't need to. So if you notice, it has the average in the year right here on the table. And yeah, so Theodore Roosevelt on average signed 145 per year, which today, I believe Donald Trump assigned 142. I don't know how many he signed because I seen it yesterday. He signed 142 this morning. I'm not exactly sure. You know him. He's always wanting to sign one. And considering that one of the people who broke the mold as far as the amount that you should really sign, he basically is doing just as many, which is crazy. So when you continue on, we then see Woodrow Wilson had just had more than Theodore Roosevelt. So Woodrow Wilson at that time, who was Democrat. But you know, the thing about the Democrat and Republican parties, they switched over the years as far as their thought processes. So when I see Republican and Democrat back then, I'm thinking of, I really don't know them, because you know, it doesn't mean anything. You know, that was the party has shifted so many different times of thought processes. So, but moving past that, Woodrow Wilson had 1,800 executive orders, and that was 225 executive orders per year, averaging out. It seems like if Donald Trump continues on to this path at 145, and I believe it's been 3 months, it's been 100 days. So if he continues on like that, all you got to do is say 3.6 times 150, or you know, so 3.6. So that's looking at about like 500. So he's looking at signing about 500 executive orders by the end of the year. So that really trumps what Woodrow Wilson is done. So okay, so that's past Woodrow Wilson. And then we come down to Calvin Coolidge, who had 1,200. I'm just naming the ones who had over 1,000 executive orders. Because if you have over 1,000 executive orders, we need to know, why are you signing so many executive orders and you're not talking to people about what you got going on? But at the same time, I do understand it's like sometimes it real dire circumstances, like times of war, times of fathom, times of depression, times of recession, times of invasions, those type of things. Yes, executive orders are needed, especially if the more, depending on, the better, depending on if it's actually getting things done. But if those things are going on, it's massive overreach, because we had 3 branches seen, and I'm gonna go back up here, and I'm gonna say seen by the founding fathers, and the first 7 didn't even sign 10. The first 7 didn't sign 10. And then if you were to really do the math, it took about 18 of them just to get to over someone signing over 100. So we have Calvin Coolidge, we're going to check into, Herbert Hoover, which we all know caused the Great Depression. In my opinion, I shouldn't say he caused it, but he didn't help. That's a strong word to say, cause, until we actually go through and do deep dive into it and actually explore the what was going on. Then we're gonna reserve judgment on how bad he was as far as his handling. But he signed 1,003, and he only had 1 term, and he signed 251 per year by the math that's been given. Then we're going to FDR, who actually took the keys from Hoover, who basically took the hoopty and turned the hoopty back into a manageable machine. So FDR had 3,725 total executive orders, which the first term was 1,700, the second term was 1,112, the third term was 884, and the fourth term, which was shortly lived because of his untimely demise, he only signed 22. So if you look at the math, that year someone else had to take over. And then because I was looking at that earlier, and I'm like, well, how come the numbers are off? And I forgot that technically speaking, a lot of times they have like January 20th and they have a few days. So whenever you see like a real short type of number at the end of, like, if this is only if you're actually looking into on your own. If you're looking into the executive orders signed on your own, and it's going to get to the point where it's going to be out of the 4 years, it's going to be like, for instance, they have one right now, Joe Biden signed in 2025, he signed like 40 or something executive orders. And the thing is, right now, we can think about that and understand that. But when we look back into when it's like 1953 or 1958 or those years, that's something we have to think about. So whenever you're looking at these executive orders, that's a tidbit that I feel that will really help you understand that if the person was really going power hungry in that year. If it is a year where it's a transition, then it is supposed to be where the person has a lower amount, which because they're only signing it for like less than a month of whatever executive orders that they have to get done. And then the preceding, the person who takes over then is going to have the massive amount of executive orders for that year. So when we have Harry, okay, Truman did not do it. So okay, if you notice, we don't have that many people going over 1,000. I believe that's the last. Those are the only ones that went over 1,000. At that point, I feel that they kind of slowed down on them. Truman had 907. He had 2 terms though, so that's not that bad. He averaged 117 out of those 2. The first term, he had 133 per year, which totaled up to 504 total executive orders. His second term, he had averaged 101. Then he had 403 signed into his second term. Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was it doesn't matter his position if he's Republican or Democrat, because I didn't mention it before, it doesn't matter. So we had 484 out of the 2 terms, and he averaged 61. That means that the people kind of work with him, or he tried to work through the system. Either or, to me, that's a good sign that you're not trying to bulldoze everyone into what you want, and you're trying to work with everyone. When we talk about JFK, he signed 214 and he signed 75 per year. And the reason why he only signed that, as we know, he only had 2.8 years of being president. Lyndon B. Johnson, who succeeded him, then had 325 signed, and he averaged 63 per year, and he was president for 5.17. Richard D. Nixon, I'm not sure his middle initial. Richard Nixon was essentially, he basically was president. He signed 346 of them. 246, 62 was the average for his first term. For that he basically was impeached and was removed, and he had 99 that he signed within a 1.5 year, and he signed 64 on average. Then we have Jared R. Ford, who signed 169. He only was president for 2.5 years, and he signed 69 on average per year. Then we have Jimmy Carter, who signed 320 executive orders, which he averaged 80 per year, which seems kind of weird that it's like a perfect 80. Well, you know what? We're not looking at it. It's not itemized. It's, for all we know, it could be 55 this year, 65 or something of that nature. So then we have Ronald Reagan. He had 381 executive orders, and he had 48 per year out of his 8 years that he was president. He was 2-term. 213 was his first term, 53. That was per year for his first term. And then he had a total 168 for his second term, and he had 42 average. We have George Bush, which he signed 166 out of his 1 term, and he had 42 on an average per year. Then we have Bill Clinton, who was a 2-term president, who signed 364 total, and then he signed 46 on average per year out of the 8 years. And his first term was 200, and he signed about 50 of them per year for his first term. His second term, he had about 164, which he averaged about 41 per year. We have now George W. Bush. We're in 2001. We're now currently into the new millennium, where we have 291 that were signed throughout his total. And he signed about 36 per year out of his 2 terms. His first term, he had 173 that were signed, 43 of them per year. And then his second term, he had 118 that were signed, and it was about around 30 per year. We have now Barack Obama, who had 276 that he signed. He signed 35 per year out of his 2 terms. His first term, he signed 147 executive orders and averaged 37 per year. And then his second term, he signed 129 executive orders and averaged 32 per year. Then we have Donald Trump's first term, which he signed 220 executive orders, averaging 55 per year. And then we have Joe R. Biden, who signed 162 executive orders, which was around 41 per year. If you really look at this, you can add up Donald Trump's himself, Biden, Barack, and Bush, and they don't even equal up to what Donald Trump is doing right now. So right now he's at 142 executive orders. So he's really abusing that executive order pen. Yeah, because just looking at it, so far you have to go all the way to really Truman, and even Truman doesn't. FDR was a person who signed over 142 per year. That was the last time he had anybody sign over 142. FDR. And then one time by Truman. All right, so let's get back to it. So that right there, hold on. Let's talk about the resource. So if you want to check out this resource, it was UC Santa Barbara. Those are the people who essentially produced this. So go ahead and thank these people. So this is, if you want to donate to them, you can donate to them. So let's go ahead and leave this in the chat if anybody wanted to donate. All right, so a few notes about it. FDR had the most executive orders that he wrote in his time of office. There are 8 presidents that have signed over 50 executive orders in one term. Teddy was the first to start the trend. And yeah, Teddy Roosevelt. So, and if you want to get the complete list of Donald Trump's executive orders, let me go ahead and provide that to you. This is his complete list, which is in the Federal Reserve. Well, Federal Registry. Federal Reserve is different. So instead of us going through all of this, this is what was gone through. But I'm essentially sharing this resource with you as if you want to do your own research on the executive orders. This is the Federal Register, where the executive orders for every president is outlined for us to look at. If you remember the note that we looked at earlier, where it stated that it started at Teddy Roosevelt, where they actually started writing down the executive orders and keeping it a book records of it. So with that being said, if you look to the right, this is where you can see the executive orders written by other presidents outside of Donald Trump. You have Biden, then you have Trump's first, and then Obama. You have all the way again going down to I believe, okay, it doesn't have Teddy Roosevelt, but it does have Franklin D. Roosevelt. So starting from 1937. So from 1937 to present, if you want to be able to look at the executive orders, you're able to look at it. And then after that, you'll be able to then evaluate. Let's say that we're not going to go into the other executive orders. That is for another time. But at the same time, we're going to put a footnote in that, and I will share this resource with you so that way, if you would like to check out if you like to check out the Federal Register executive orders written by any president from 1937 to present, you'll be able to do so. One thing that we're going to have to dive into shortly, again, is Jimmy Carter. And the reason why we're going to dive into Jimmy Carter is because one of the talking points that a lot of people have that try to vilify Joe Biden is they try to say that he mimics Jimmy Carter. So because that is what the talking point is, we essentially will have to figure out and really know what Jimmy Carter's proposals were. And then we're actually have to look at Ronald Reagan's on a different time schedule dealing with him. That right there will be dealing with a different kind of quote unquote corruption. Talking about the war on drugs, which if there's another podcast that caster I know that I've checked out years ago, I love this series. He talked about the war on drugs, and he outlined Ronald Reagan's hypocrisy. And if it comes to me, I will make it a point to make it available to everyone. But for right now, we're going to have to continue marching. So if you want to check out Ronald Reagan, so that will be another one we will check out. As far as George H.W. Bush, I really don't see the need to check him out. William J. Bill Clinton, we will have to check out him because of NAFTA. That will be the only reason. And the reason why I say is because it has been a huge talking point that NAFTA, which is, well, not just NAFTA, it's been a bunch of criticisms that people have given of Bill Clinton, rightfully so. So I feel that we may need to kind of dive into Bill Clinton's executive orders of the past and kind of see where it really falls into. Then we have George W. Bush. I really don't feel the need to really dive into him as much. But as far as Barack Obama, we will need to, because a lot of the executive orders that Donald Trump has been to ratify Biden and Obama's executive orders of the past. And then we're now back at present. So if you notice, when you're looking at these executive order disposition tables, just real quick, read. Hey, let's go ahead and read a little bit. Disposition tables contain information about presidential documents, beginning with those signed by FDR and are arranged according to presidential administration and year of signature. The tables are compiled and maintained by the Office of Federal Registry editors. So if you're looking at it, it gives you the executive order number. Then it tells you what the executive order, the title of the executive order. It tells you when it was signed, then when it was published, and then it tells us the citation number 90 FR 17735. That's legal talk. Then that's FR document number. That was talking about the doc, which is 2025 TAC 07470. It gives you a PDF and it lets you know that it's 4 pages. So if you wanted to, this will be able to allow you to check out these executive orders. If you want to look at it as far as a link, that is still kind of website link, you go to the permalink. If you want to check it out where you want to be able to print it out, you will then be going to the PDF. So the PDF looks like this. If you notice, it gives you the background, and then it highlights the policy, then subsection, and then it has section 3, talks about the strategy that they're trying to implement. All right. So I recommend, if you want people to really make a difference, is to look at the executive orders, even if they were rescinded, even if they were countered and beaten in court, and just kind to look at the mind of the individuals we're dealing with. It is important to understand the reasoning behind why, the purpose, and then try to figure out how it aligns to Project 2025. If you want to look at the permalink, this right here, again, it's the same information that was given with the PDF version, but this is more like of the web page interactive, and you can share it if you want. If there's a one that you want to share with a friend, you can email it, or you can just get the little copy and paste. That also have ways you can comment, say. All right. So yeah, there's page numbers. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. So if you want to look at the executive orders on your own, you can go to the Federal Register, and then you be able to check all the way from FDR to present, and then be able to evaluate the different executive orders signed for them. I recommend looking into your favorite president, or your worst president, or the one you can't stand, or the one you love. Recommend looking at those, and the ones in between, you can let them fall to the wayside. But I do highly recommend looking at least 3 different types: the person you love, the one you can't stand, and the one that is notable. The ones you got to. The ones you got to check out would be FDR and Jimmy Carter. All right. The ones that you might like, well, for me, will be, I don't know, I would say, I would say Biden. I'll just say Biden, because technically speaking, Biden's track record, I mean, he was a team player, and I love team players. Great coaches need to find a team captain who is a team player. If your captain's not a team player, then even if he's the better person, then he's not the one to pick. And number 3, the worst. In order to understand why we're going through, we're going to have to do deep dives into presidents like Nixon. We're going to have to do deep dives into presidents like yours truly, Donald Trump. Those are the types of presidential executive orders that we're going to have to figure out. So let's go ahead and continue on. So pages 4 through 9 is the executive orders that were signed. So out of this list, we're just going to go through 1 through 26. We're then going to evaluate the latest one, which was the one that was dealing with the EPA, the mineral rights, offshore mineral rights is the one that was the case study was done over, which was the most current one. So that's the reason why the case study was done on it, because it was the most current one. So at that point, we may start a new case study after reviewing the last case study, and that way it's more of a fluid motion. Let's go ahead and get into it. So executive order number 1, ending the weaponization of the federal government. This is something that he basically claimed. If you remember, he's always talking about people trying to keep him accountable is a form of harassment to him. And he felt that when people are trying to figure out why he had top secret documents in Mar-a-Lago, why are you in my castle? And he felt like that was weaponization when the FBI was coming for him. But when the FBI was coming for Biden, it was okay. It was kind of, he applauded it. That just shows the hypocritical thoughts that they have. Executive order number 2, initial recession of harmful executive orders and actions. So this is one reason why we're going to have to look into the executive orders of Biden and Obama, because when he is essentially trying to rescind the presidents that came before him, which is just petty. There's no other way to call it. This is petty. It's kind of like, well, that's how the last boss did it. Well, we're not gonna do it that way. We're gonna do it this way. And even if whatever your last boss did was really successful and it worked because the new boss came, we're gonna get rid of it. So that just, and I say get rid of it is a bad thing because safety is being at risk. National security is at risk right now. All right. Executive order number 3, restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. This is something that is very hypocritical if you know the party that is writing this. So that's very hypocritical, because it's basically saying, like, when you buy Twitter and turn it to X, and then you regulate and you push propaganda, and then the person who has X is your biggest donor, it's kind of crazy to kind of think that you're actually going to form those words out your mouth. But let's go ahead and move to the next one. Executive order number 4, America First policy directive to the Secretary of State. So he basically made a mandate to the Secretary of State to put America first. Now, my only thing about this America First policy is starting to sound like America only. And because everyone's okay with the concept of America First. When those warehouses went to China and went to India or wherever they went to Brazil or whatever sweatshops y'all decided to go to, y'all were not thinking about America. So that thought process saying America First sounds very like, is this, it is not worth the papers written on. Well, let's go to the next one. Number 5, ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs in pre-referencing. So this is a way to bring back 1950s. And this is dealing with the civil rights movements that were taking place. If you want to learn more about the civil rights movements that were taking place, as far as outlined by someone else, will be Democracy Forward. They outlined the civil rights that the Project 2025 actually rolled back. This document was written June 2024, which basically lets you know that this is planned. And they plan to get rid of those civil rights kind of achievements by going against women's productive reproduction rights, by going for really the LGBTQ community, Then we already know the African American community and the immigrant community, and then this disabled, the special needs community. Those are the bunch of the DI. When we talk about inclusion, the special needs is what you talk about with inclusion, which the thought process of making people register because they may have autism is a crazy, crazy concept, which is very detrimental to people, because if they are, which I'm not sure if they have started making people register if they are artistic or not, but this is something that has been talked about in the Red Hat community, as far as making individuals register that have autism. And to my understanding, autism does not mean that a person is not intelligent. Oftentimes, to my experience, it means the exact opposite. And what I mean by that is on a singularity, on a singular topic, a person who has autism most times will have more knowledge on one topic than everyone else. Now, when you talk about everything else, that's different. But when we talk about that one topic, because I feel like Elon Musk is autistic. If you look at him, he does show signs of autism, which is okay. I don't think that he needs to be put on a list and vilified, but that's something that people with hearts would think of. So let's go ahead and move to the next one. Number 5 seems like that might be a good candidate. Number 2 was a great candidate for, for our ending cap. Let's go ahead and move on. Number 6, holding former government officials accountable for election interference and proper disclosure of sensitive government information. All right, I can't believe he actually wrote that down. All right, I thought number 5 was good. Number 6 is good too. I can't believe he said that. And then, the reason I say is because he literally asked Ukraine for election involvement and interference when he was running against, who was it? Was it Hillary that he asked? Where he literally was on stage and asked for, hey man, if you got dirt, let me know. Okay. Number 6 is good too. Number 7, unleashing Alaska's extraordinary resource potential. So this is basically a money grab, them trying to take advantage of the oil and then the other resources, the fine resources that's under a lot of the ice. I know when it comes down to Greenland, we don't have Greenland, but he's essentially saying let's capitalize and let's get everything we can, as opposed to let the people of Alaska determine. And then you wonder why Canada doesn't want to be 51st. All right. Number 8, unleashing American energy. So this is essentially him saying, let's go ahead and deplete our reserves and go ahead and go full tilt. Now, the only thing about someone who does not try to replenish or keep reserves is that when you run against a snag, you're going to be in a bad predicament. And this is not a great concept to me just by the term. Now, if we actually look into it and he's saying boost production in a clean, efficient way, that's different. But if he's talking about just making more, finding more oil rigs, and then at that point, then allowing those polluters to continue on with less regulation, that is horrible. So if you are about EPA, number 8 will be good. Number 9, withdrawing the U.S. from the WHO, the World Health Organization. How come this man whose dad or granddad, his granddad died of the flu? His granddad died of the flu. Seriously, look it up. Why did your granddad die of the flu? And you are trying to allow other, that must be it. He's trying to make everyone catch up to him when it comes to the way that he wants us to die like his granddad. He does not care about our health. Let's go ahead and talk about number 10. Declaring a national energy emergency. I didn't know we was at an emergency. I didn't know we were at emergency status. What emergency happened besides the wildfires in California? So yeah, that seems like he's just looking to again take out the resources, and it's kind of like if you give the keys to your kid, he's gonna go 180 in your Corvette. You know he's gonna go 180 on the Corvette. When you get the Corvette, it's gonna be loose things underneath the vehicle. You got to get with it. So number 11, designating cartels and other organizations as foreign terrorist organizations and specially designated global terrorists. And we are seeing this play in real life, where he's basically taking those people into the Venezuela prisons, and those are more like torture camps. If you look at those photos, and I know I sent one to one of my partners and he thought it was Photoshop, and I'm sitting like, oh, if that lets you sleep better at night. And it seems like everyone wants to make it seem like it's AI or something of that nature when you see them all in the big jail cells, and it's like 200 of them in one room. America does not operate like Venezuela, and the concept that people will just allow themselves to sleep better at night with that kind of thought process is infuriating, because it first starts off with them, then it becomes the other people who are not from America, just who happen to speak out. Then it's going to become people who speak out against him. Then it's become the people who doesn't look like him, and then it becomes you. That's how it normally works. It's Nazis all over. And that's, again, the reason why we are going to be going over the Third Reich. And, well, of course, the executive's order watch isn't, but we are going to go over that. That will be a different episode. All right, so executive order number 12, establishing and implementing the President's Department of Government Efficiency. We already know what Doge is doing, so that'll be executive order number 12. So whenever someone talks about Doge, you can then say executive order number 12. You know that was his 12th executive order. We everyone knows about that, and we see the results. We will be looking at that on a different time, but we can dive into that. If number 12 seems interesting, we can get into it. Number 13, protecting the American people against invasions. And this is where he started talking about that invisible border. Like he essentially was talking about it like we were getting ready for the Death Star, which was understandable, but still slightly humorous to me, thinking that came from a president's mouth. All right, number 14, protecting the meaning and value of American citizenship. So this executive order, it sounds more like a proclamation, and it's not really like it sounds like something that you're going to be a part of a cult or some part of a group, and you're saying this, and it's like, and I really shouldn't say that. What are the values that of American citizenship he's referring to? Is he talking about protecting, or is he talking about revamping it? Is he talking about reconstructing it? Because when I think about him saying it, I think he's talking about revamping it and reconstructing it. I don't think he's talking about protecting it. Let's move on. Number 15, protecting the U.S. from foreign terrorists and other national security and public safety threats. So when you look at the way that they're handling national security with Peak Hegseth, with Signalgate 1, and oh my gosh, you think you learn Signalgate 2, and then let's just use that. He is essentially allowing individuals who have no business knowing what our military members are doing during strike attacks. This is a huge security risk. You're going against your own executive order. So whenever he's talking, you can then talk to him. What about executive order number 15? You need to fire Pete Hegseth based on your executive order, sir. Let's talk about number 16. Putting America first in international environmental agreements. So this goes back in line with, I believe, number 6 or one of those where we're talking about putting America first. Sounds great in nature. Sounds great when you say it. When we talk about environment, what happens if let's say for whatever reason we were to put a dome on over America, then we don't have to care about what happens in Asia. Then we don't have to care about what happens in Taiwan or Europe and Africa or Russia. If they were to then have all of the methane shots and methane factories and were to then to pollute the whole earth and they became looking like the Matrix, then at that point, I guess you might have a point. We can then think about just America. Oh, we don't have the technology. So because we don't have the technology, we need to think about everyone. We don't exist in a bubble. So if we were to only think about America and we were not to get on those countries that are being massive polluters, and then at that point we're going to be affected. So that's a sound idiotic just to think that you can just say that. But that just shows you that the experts are not speaking. We're dealing with people who are doing it not based on merit. We're doing it based on who they are. So number 17, realigning the U.S. refugee admissions program. I don't know the what the program is right now, but I'm assuming that they're basically saying the refugees right now, we're going to revamp it and make it so that only the foreigners come in that we like, and the foreigners we don't like are not going to be permitted. That's what that sounds like. They're going to make it harder for the people that don't fit their mode to make it in. Number 18, executive order, restoring the death penalty and protecting public safety. So he wants to make capital punishment legal all 50 states again. He wants to be able to kill all of our children. And the reason why I say this is because of the Central Park 5 or the Manhattan 5. I forgot what it was, but it's like, I remember, hold on, let me check. Yes. So the Central Park 5, he wanted to give them the death penalty back in the 90s, and I don't think that he's changed. He was old enough in the 90s to know better. 30 years ago, he was in his 45s, 50. He was 40 to 50. He was old enough to understand everything that he's saying out of his mouth. And at this point, he is saying the exact same thing. He wants to be able to kill people because he said a 14-year-old deserved the death penalty in the 90s. And then come to find out they didn't do it. Still has not apologized to this day about that. Let's get to number 19. 19, this is the only thing that a lot of individuals that America has agreed upon. Securing our borders. No one is disagreeing about securing borders, sir. The implementation and the way it's done, that's different. Number 20, application of protecting Americans from foreign adversary controlled application act to TikTok. So this is essentially the TikTok ban, which essentially is something that technically could have and should have been done. At the same time, you're dealing with Elon Musk, who is a big benefactor of China, which is crazy. So executive order number 21, clarifying the military's role in protecting the territorial integrity of the U.S. So then he's basically redefining and reclassifying the role of our children who signed up. And I said our children because if you are 30 and up, 35 and up, you can't have a child who's 17 and up. And that is our children who we may not have the financial means to pay for our child's college. And that child decides to go to serve. And now your child is going to be, their mission used to be about American people. Now it's about Trump's directives. All right. Number 22, defending women from gender ideological extremism and restoring biological truth to federal government. This right here is essentially telling people that a man's a man, a woman's a woman, and there's only an M and an F, and there's no anything in between. I'm not saying that I'm agreeing or disagreeing with anything. I'm just saying that I really don't care. And I just say it like that. Just because I don't care don't mean that I'm going to tell them how to live their life. So, and then talking about women, and how many women did he talk to before making this? Like, did he have counsel with at least 13 different women only? At that point, if you at least have 13 different women and y'all talked about the federal government and things of that nature at that point, and y'all then come out with a conclusion, I say that because nobody wants men in women's bathroom. Nobody wants grown men who can be able to kidnap our daughters and our grandbabies. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants the concept of your baby going into that room and then a grown man going in there having the right to and being able to use whatever kind of things behind closed doors. Long story short, that's something no one wants. We do need to fight that. At the same time, we're going to have to move on. That's a whole nother subject. I would like to have a workshop on that with others who are more passionate about that than I am. I'm not that passionate about that. That's not my hill. If there are people with passion, please let me know and we can start talking about the LGBTQ communities and more of that nature. Until then, let's get to number 23. Number 23, reevaluating and realigning U.S. foreign aid. So we had a W, I believe, today where they talked about U.S. aid that was re-implemented. I hope that was true information. If it isn't, I'm going to be heartbroken. When we talk about U.S. aid, he basically tried to cap it and get rid of it. So he's basically saying we don't need no foreign aid. So let's talk about number 24. The biggest problem with no foreign aid is soft power. In order for us to have soft power to be able to have communications with others, we're going to have to have some kind of soft power with them instead of just being able to being the people with big guns. So number 24, executive order, reforming the federal hiring process and restoring merit to government service. So with this right here, we know that a lot of that DEI talk is what he tried to say, and we talk about merit. The people that he hired had no merit. What? He hired people who had no government experience. What merit is that? What are you talking about? Stop being a hypocrite, man. So we talk about hiring processes. So if this was someone else who wrote this, who actually had the Americans' people's best interests in heart, this is not a bad executive order. Number 25, restoring accountability to policy influencing positions within the federal workforce. So accountability influences for policy influencing positions. So I guess I'm missing, because when I look at this, I'm thinking about the fact that he's taken out a lot of the independent regulatory agencies, and he's taken out a lot of the gatekeepers and watchdogs in the federal government. So that just seems like that's his cap. We have to call it what it is. That's not worth the paper is written on. Number 26, which is the last one, restoring the names that honor American greatness. You can only wonder what that means. I'm pretty sure that he's going to be mentioning all of the great people of his heyday. Because remember, he was born in like 1944. So he remembers all of those great times of being able to wear the white cloth and no one telling you anything. So what I'm going to go over is the one executive order that has already been reviewed. At that point, you can then proceed to let me know which executive order you like me to go over, and then when we come together next week, I will then go over that executive order. So when we talk about the executive order, which was the Seabed Mineral Development and Global Sustainability. All right, this was signed on April 24th, 2025. To expedite U.S. leadership in seabed mineral development, the directive aims to streamline permitting, enhancing the domestic capabilities, and counters China's influence in critical mineral resources. While the policy promises economic and strategic benefits, it raises significant environmental and geopolitical concerns. If you're interested in looking at it, this document here is, hold on, let me go ahead and share this document just in case you want to be able to. Okay, look, it already had it there for me. Technology, I love it. All right, so the pros of this seabed mineral development. If you hold on, I'm sorry, I kind of skipped ahead. Let's actually look at the executive order. Just get a little background of it. So this executive order right here. The background has a core national security and economic interest in maintaining leadership in DC science and technology and seabed mineral resources. The U.S. faces unprecedented economic and national security challenges in securing reliable supplies of critical minerals independent of foreign adversary control. Vast offshore seabed areas hold critical minerals and energy resources. These resources are key to strengthening our economy, securing our energy future, and reducing dependence on foreign suppliers for critical minerals. The U.S. also controls seabed mineral resources in one of the largest ocean areas of the world. Our nation can, through the exercise of existing authorities and by establishing international partnerships, access potential vast resources in seabed polymetallic nodules, other subsea structures in coastal deposits containing strategic minerals such as nickel, cobalt, copper, magnesium, titanium, and rare earth elements, which are vital to our national security and economic prosperity. If you would like to go and read all of this, you can. It actually goes through the more of the policy where they kind of highlight everything. So let's go. Let's talk about a few of the pieces of the policy. Rapid developing domestic capabilities for exploration, characteristics, collection, and processing of seabed mineral resources through streamlined permitting without compromising environmental and transparency standards. The second thing will be supporting investments in deep sea science, mapping, and technology. The third thing would be enhancing coordination among executive departments and agencies with respect to seabed mineral development activities described in this order. The fourth thing will be establishing the U.S. as global leader in responsible seabed mineral exploration, development technologies, and practices, and as partner for countries developing seabed mineral resources in areas within their national jurisdiction, including their exclusive economic zones, EEZ. The fifth thing would be creating a robust domestic supply chain for critical mineral derived from seabed resources to support economic growth, reindustrialization, and military preparedness, including through new processing capabilities. And the sixth thing, strengthening partnerships with allies in industry to counter China's growing influence over seabed mineral resources and to ensure U.S. companies are well positioned to support allies and partners interested in developing seabed minerals responsible in areas within their national jurisdiction, including their EEZ. All right, so they go over the strategy and how they're planning on doing it within 60 days of the date of this order. Yeah, we'll go through it. So the Secretary of Commerce shall, acting through the administrator of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Emissions, NOAA, in consultation with the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Interior, acting through the Director of the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, expedite the process for reviewing and issuing seabed mineral exploration licenses and commercial recovery permits in areas beyond national jurisdiction under the Deep Seabed Hard Mineral Resource Act. Consists with the applicable law. The expedited process consists with applicable law should ensure efficiency, predictability, and competitiveness for American companies. In coordination with the Secretary of the Interior and the Secretary of Energy, in the consultation with the heads of other relevant agencies, provide a report to the Assistant to the President for Economic Policy, the Chair of National Energy Dominance Council, and the Vice Chair of National Energy Dominance Council that identifies A, private sector interests and opportunities for seabed mineral resource exploration, mining, and environmental monitoring in U.S. outer continental shelf, in areas beyond national jurisdiction, in areas within national jurisdiction of certain other nations that express interest in partnering with U.S. companies on seabed mineral development, and B, private sector interests and opportunities for polymetallic nodule and other seabed mineral resource processing capacity in U.S. or on U.S. flagged vessels. In consultation with the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Interior, and the head of other relevant agencies in cooperation with commercial and other non-governmental organizations, develop a plan to map priority areas of the seabed, such as those abundant or accessible undersea resources, in order to accelerate data collection and characterization, prioritizing areas within the U.S. states' outer continental shelf. B, the Secretary of Interior shall establish the expedited process for reviewing and approving permits for prospecting and granting leases for exploration, development, and production of seabed minerals resources within the U.S. outer continental shelf under the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act. Consists with the applicable law. The expedited process consists with applicable law shall ensure efficiency, predictability, and competitiveness for American companies. Then the second thing will be identify which critical minerals may derive from seabed resources, coordinate with the Secretary of Defense and Secretary of Energy to indicate which critical minerals are essential for applicable applications such as defense, infrastructure, manufacturing, and energy. You notice how they said defense before they say anything else. That means that they want more nuke power. They want more bombing ability. They want more destructive ability above anything else. Because when I think of that, I think of the Sea Whiz. I think of defensive weapons on the Navy ships. That's what I think of. Then we talk about manufacturing. That's cool. We talk about energy. That's cool. Yeah, those two. I get it. All right. So the next thing, the Secretary of Commerce, in coordination with the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Interior, and the Secretary of Energy, so implementing all three, engage with key partners and allies to offer support for seabed mineral resource exploration, extraction, processing, and environmental monitoring in areas within national jurisdiction of those partners and allies, including by seeking scientific collaboration and commercial development opportunities for U.S. companies, and by developing a prioritized list of countries for engagement, and provide a joint report to the Assistant to the President of Economic Policy, the Chair of National Energy Dominance Council, and the Vice Chair of National Energy Dominance Council on the feasibility of an international benefit sharing mechanism for seabed mineral resource extraction and development that occurs in areas beyond the national jurisdiction of any country. D, the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Energy shall, so it was only two, not three this time. The Interior is left alone. Provide a report to the Assistant to the President for Economic Policy, the Chair of National Energy Dominance Council, and the Vice Chair of the National Energy Dominance Council that addresses the feasibility and any potential benefits or drawbacks of using the national defense stockpile for physical or virtual storage of material derived from seabed polymetallic nodules, and of entering off-take agreements for those minerals. The second part of that, in consultation with the Secretary of Commerce, review and revise existing regulations consistent with applicable law to support domestic processing, capabilities for seabed mineral resources and explore the use of grant and loan authorities, the Defense Production Act, and other procurement and financing authorities for this process. For this purpose, and ensure the strategic and critical mineral boards and directives considers seabed mineral resource developments when recommending a strategy for ensuring a secure supply of materials designated as critical to national security, to the security of defense under the Strategic and Critical Materials Stockpiling Act. And the last part will be the Chief Executive Officer of the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, the President of the Export-Import Bank of the U.S., the Director of the Trade and Development Agency, and the heads of other relevant agencies shall provide a joint report to the Assistant to the President for Economic Policy, the Chair of the National Energy Dominance Council, and the Vice Chair of the National Energy Dominance Council that identifies tools to support domestic and international seabed mineral resource exploration, extraction, processing, and environmental monitoring. We're not going to go over the definitions. We're not even going to go over the general provisions. So, yeah, we're not going to go over that. What we are going to go over is just the pros and cons, the report I did on this. So, just going over it. We have to go over it before we went over the pros and cons over it, because taking the horse before the cart. You get. I hope you understand. So we'll talk about the pros of this of the seabed mineral development. The pros: strategic resource acquisition, accelerated access to essential minerals like cobalt, nickel, and rare earth elements, supports national defense and technological industries. Again, a lot of these minerals, when we talk about getting them outside of the fact that it's really about war. When I hear defense, I'm always thinking about war or countering war. Yes, I shouldn't say it's about war, but so the idea of getting the missiles is needed because hey, one thing that stops someone from having a gun is a bigger gun sometimes. That is a true statement. So the next thing that was a pro would be the economic growth. Estimates suggest that deep sea mining could contribute over $300 billion to GDP and create numerous jobs in the next decade. Axios, actually, if you want to, you can be able to check that out through Axios. The last pro will be the supply chain diversification, reducing reliance on foreign sources, particularly China, enhancing national security and economic independence. This is something that the Financial Times kind of outlined. The cons of this report was the environmental risk. Deep sea mining proposes threats to marine ecosystems with potential long-term impacts on biodiversity. This information could be found with World Resource Institute. One of the second con would be regulatory challenges. The U.S. move bypasses the International Seabed Authority, leading to international criticisms and potential conflicts over ocean governance. You can find information from Financial Times, Washington Post, and AOX. And the last con will be economic uncertainty. The viability of deep sea mining is questioned due to high costs and evolving demand patterns for raw materials. So the Washington Post kind of will talk about it. So when we talk about the matrix for monitoring the progress of this, because again, this is called executive watch for a reason. We're looking for different ways to really determine if this executive order is good and bad, because just because the person who wrote the executive order may be quote unquote not the best person does not mean good can't come from it. But we have to figure out what good comes from it. We have to figure out what bad comes from it as well. So the environmental sustainability matrix, to assess the environmental impact of seabed mining and related activities, the carbon emissions. We could monitor CO2 emissions from operations. If you notice throughout this document, if this document has been shared with you, and it should be shared underneath, if you would like to actually look at and see how this is impacting real world, you can after this has been posted. So in order to be able to figure out if this is good or bad, the carbon emissions is one way. The energy consumption, tracking energy use in kilowatt hours. The next one will be water usage, measuring water consumption in metric tons. The next one will be waste reduction, quantifying waste reduction efforts in cubic meters. The last one, the last matrix we could use will be biodiversity impact, which will be assessing effects on marine life and ecosystems. So if you just a brief history of me, which I feel like I am kind of rude, but I do believe that what I'm saying is more important to me. I am a teacher or educator over 15 years. And so because I am, I'm also looking to become an IT teacher. And I've been dealing with math for the duration. The STEMs is very important to me. So whenever I'm looking at this, I am looking to identify how it affects the STEMs and then how it affects the workforce, because we're all part of the workforce. But the reason why I'm highlighting STEMs is because that is something that I am trying to help out my students with, and we have to figure out how it affects them as far as that is concerned. So to evaluate the growth and effectiveness of STEM education initiatives, the first one will be we can skip this. We can skip that. That's a note for myself. I'm sorry to include y'all in that. So resources for monitoring and evaluation to effectively monitor progress and assess the impact of seabed mineral development. The National Science Board, hold on a sec. When you see something and it's wrong, a lot of times people try to ignore it. I like to fix it and correct it on the spot. And the reason why I say is because we all seen it. It was a piece of trash that was on the floor. You really gonna act like that roach wasn't there? Kill the roach and get rid of the body. All right. So we talk about resources for monitoring and evaluation. So National Science Board's science and engineering indicators provides comprehensive data on STEM education and workforce trends. The OECD Green Innovation Matrix offers indicators to measure green technology development and adoption. World Bank's Green Growth Indicators tracks environmental and resource productivity, national assets, and quality of life matrix. Then International Seabed Authority reports provides updates on international regulation and environmental assessment related to seabed mining. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy just this one part right here, and and the reason why I say is because this right here will be able to help us monitor this one executive order. All right. So, and then let's go ahead and talk about the conclusion. The executive order to advance seabed mineral development presents opportunities for economic growth and strategic resource acquisition. However, it also introduces environmental and geopolitical challenges that require careful consideration implementing robust monitoring systems and adhering to international standards will be crucial in balancing developmental goals with environmental sustainability and global concerns. So this concludes the reading of the executive orders. Now we're going to finish out, and the way we're going to finish out, I would like to watch the last just a video of the last 100-day, and I believe I'm not exactly who it is by, but I'll figure it out in 2 seconds. Give me 2 seconds. April. Here we go.
I was with a major carrier, and I was running into a lot of problems where...
First item that President Trump is signing is the rescission of...
This is Democracy Now! Democracy Now!
No, that's not it.
First item that President Trump is signing.
Today, President Donald Trump marks 100 days in office, and a new study shows confidence in the commander-in-chief has hit a 5-year low. Karen Kaifa is in Washington with a look at where President Trump stands on his economic campaign promises. Karen?
Hi there, Simone. President Trump is now in Michigan. He chose the state for his Day 100 rally because it's a state that he won. It was key to his victory in November, but also because his economic message cut through in particular. Now, his tariff plans could actually be working against some of his campaign promises.
The White House touting President Donald Trump's economic agenda on Day 100 of his second term.
President Trump is delivering on his promises to lower costs for American families and businesses.
But research nonprofit The Conference Board's April reading of consumer confidence hit its lowest level in almost 5 years, with tariffs top of mind for consumers surveyed.
Basically, anyone who's making a big purchase, whether it's an air conditioner, a refrigerator, a washer, a dryer, is thinking much harder about tariffs than they wish they ever had to, and they're not quite sure what to do or when.
The White House touted progress in things like job creation and labor force participation for those without a high school diploma since Trump took office, and slowing inflation. But Cardiff Garcia, editorial director for the Economic Innovation Group, says those indicators can lag.
Things look fine, but it doesn't mean that things actually are fine. It just takes some time for actual things that happen in the real economy to translate into those economic indicators.
Justin Wolfers, professor of economics and public policy at the University of Michigan, says the tariff uncertainty for both businesses and consumers could slow spending and the U.S. economy.
Lots of families are sitting around the kitchen table right now worried about the prospect of a recession. If that's the case, now's the time to save for a rainy day. Maybe pull back on that big purchase you were going to make. If that happens, consumers pull back on spending, that could be the first step towards a recession.
A reading of first quarter U.S. economic growth set to release Wednesday morning could foreshadow challenges ahead.
And on his way to Michigan this afternoon, President Trump signed an executive order that dials back some of the tariffs on the auto industry. The White House says that this was the result of conversations with the automakers about how those tariffs could impact their production and hiring here in the U.S. President Trump described it as short-term relief for both the manufacturers and consumers. Live in Washington, Karen Kaifa, WUSA 9.
A lot of people just worried about how these tariffs are going to hit them right in the wallet and the pocketbook. Karen, thank you. Appreciate your reporting on this for us tonight.
All right. So I appreciate your time. And if you like what you heard, go ahead, like, comment, share, subscribe. One thing I would like to say, well, a few things. When we talk about Donald Trump signing over 140 executive orders in less than 100 days, if this pattern continues, he's going to sign over 500 orders. well, around 500 orders. There's only been 8 presidents that have signed over 1,000 orders. So he's going to be going in line with those. What we're going to be doing, we're going to be doing deep dives into Hoover. We're going to be looking at Jimmy Carter. Those two will be the ones that we're going to be looking to as far as their executive orders. If you don't mind providing me with the out of the list of 26, which executive order that you would like us to try to highlight next week, I really appreciate your time. If there's anything you like to say, let me know. With that being said, go ahead, like, comment, share, subscribe, and I appreciate your time. This is Email, and this is For Democracy.
I mean, look, y'all see that they throwing the trash out. They know what's about to happen. What's about to go? Now he ain't put his finger up. He ain't put his finger up. So then he goes outside. And let's see here. That's the end of the video. He walked his ass back in, and right there is when, and then he pushed the brother. He walked his ass back in, and right there is when, and then he pushed the brother, and that's when hashtag team whip that ass.
Disaster. But it is fair as but you're going to have to live with it. We will either renegotiate it or we will break it. Because, you know, every agreement has an end. You can't just break the law. Excuse me, every agreement has an end.
Pauline's Pizza, where we deliver happiness one slice at a time. What's your craving today?
Hi, can you tell me about your menu?
Of course. We offer handmade pizzas with different crusts like thin crust, original, or deep dish. We also have fresh salads, pastas, and both bone-in and boneless wings. Would you like to hear about our specialty pies or any current special deals?
Do you have any gluten-free options?
Yes, we do. Our gluten-free crusts are super tasty, but there's a $3 upcharge. Would you like me to go over the options with you?
Great. What's the largest size pizza you offer?
Our largest size is the extra large pizza, perfect for feeding a crowd. Plus, if you upgrade to an extra large, you'll get a free 2-liter soda. How does that sound?
That sounds great. Can I get that gluten-free?
Absolutely. You can get the extra large with a gluten-free crust. What toppings would you like on your pizza?
Do you offer any vegan cheese options?
Yes, we do. Our vegan cheese is delicious and comes with a $3 upcharge. Would you like to add that to your gluten-free pizza?
Yeah.
Great choice. So we've got an extra large gluten-free pizza with vegan cheese. Any other toppings you'd like to add?
Well, one moment. What about hosting an event? Do you have any space for a birthday party?
Yes, we do host parties and offer catering. Let me get your email address so I can send over our catering plans. How many people are you planning to invite?
I left my sunglasses there last week. Can you check if they're still there?
I can definitely check for you. Can you describe the sunglasses for me?
They're black with silver frames.
Thanks for the details. I'll have someone check on that for you. Is there anything else I can help with today?
No, that's all for now. I'll call back later.